Hi guys, it's Mrs. Suarez here. All right, so we have been studying lights and shadows as they fall on different shapes, right? These shapes, believe it or not, are actually less complicated than the bear and the duck. So they shouldn't be too hard for you to copy the shadows from them. The only tricky part about this exercise is that you have to actually draw them onto here, where before I already had the drawing on there for you. So that's no big deal because you guys have done an elephant, you guys did the dog. It's basically the exact same process, okay? So as I walk you through drawing this, you'll recognize a lot of the stuff that we've already been doing all along. All right, so here we go. So first, I think just to kind of help myself out, I'm going to see where this horizon, I don't know if we call it a horizon line or the edge of the table, where this line actually falls. So I'm looking at this distance and I'm going to say it's about right here. So I'm going to give myself a little mark there, okay? And obviously this is going to be directly across. So I'm just going to make a scan line. I'm going to go directly across. Okay, now they're very short, right? They're very, very short, as you can see. So I'm just going to make like a little dash here, like a little dash here, and that should get me set up pretty well. Because if you draw your shapes first and then put this in, and your shapes get a little distorted, then these are going to be in the wrong place. It's not going to be the end of the world, but it just will throw things off. So I'd say it's good to start with those little lines. Okay, now everything on here has a relationship to the edge of the square and a relationship to the other objects, right? So we just have to pay attention to those relationships. Let's see. Let's start with this cube. Okay. So a cube is basically a three-dimensional square, right? Now you see the negative space here that is very tall and skinny. We want to make sure we have a negative space shape that is equally skinny, right? And as you can see, my dash was a little too long. That's what erasers are for. Just gonna get rid of that little guy. All right. And we also want to see how far past this dash does this corner go. So it's about like that. I would say maybe a little shorter than I have it. Again, pull out the eraser. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good for that point, right? Now let's make another point. Do you see how this one's a little longer than this one? So I want to make sure this looks a little bit longer than that. Now, before I move on, I just want to double check the negative space here from this point to the edge of the rectangle or square, whatever. So see that? Looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. If you see that yours is way too big or way too small, then you got to do something about this point. It's got to be somewhere else. Okay? All right. Now, let's see, what other points do I want to do? Okay, now I know I have to make a slanty line down here, right? I know it's slanty. I just don't know exactly how slanty it is, okay? So one thing I can do to help myself is draw this point. So we can do the basketball method of drawing, right? Where we make ourselves a basket. So instead of just shooting blindly and just going, woo, hopefully that's right, we're going to actually have a goal, okay? So this is our goal. So let's look at how far over that is and how far up, okay? So it's about that far over. So I want to make sure that I am matching that. I'd say that looks pretty good. Now the fun fact, because this is directly below this, you could actually kind of like do a scan line and go like that. Or if you really want to pull out a ruler, you can, but I really advise you to not use a ruler. I think rulers are a crutch. I think you can use your inner ruler, your right brain, to tell you whether things are lining up, okay? All right, so if I'm gonna make that how far over, I know it's a very short hop up, very short. If we make it too high up, oh boy, there'll be trouble. So I'm gonna just make that little dot. Okay, I have my basket now. Now I know I need to go from here to there. All right, from here to there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and practice swing, practice swing, practice swing, boom. Let's make that in one shot. Okay, nice. All right, that's looking pretty decent. I want to double check my negative space. I can see that it looks like a wedge. It's taller here, it's narrower here. So that looks good. That looks pretty good. All right. All right. Now, let's see. There's also, okay, because cubes are pretty logical, there's going to be a point here and it's going to have a relationship to this point, which is very, very similar to the relationship from this point to this point. Like, in other words, these two lines, they're going to be, because of the size of it, they're going to be pretty similar angle. So I think that would be the next best thing to do. So we also know that this point is directly above this point, right? So if we scan directly above, and we know that we don't want to go to the same level as this because this is a little lower than this, right? So we want to be a little bit lower, right? A little bit lower, but we want to be directly above so we can make a nice vertical line. Practice swing, practice swing, practice swing, boom. There we go. Okay, so we got that nice line. And remember, keep your lines light until you're absolutely sure. At the end, we're going to go in and darken all of our lines, but for right now, keep them nice and light. And then again, practice swing, practice swing, practice swing, boom. Okay, here we go. So now we've got what looks kind of like a distorted square. We could call it a parallelogram. It's a fancy word for a four-sided figure where both of the pairs of edges are parallel to each other. But it can be a little bit skewed, so it's not a perfect square, right? All right, if yours looks like a perfect square, that means your left brain came in and bullied you into making it a perfect square. So don't listen to your left brain, it's evil. I'm just kidding. All right, now let's look at the relationship between this far point and the other 2 points, okay? Now, is this directly above this? Ask yourself that. You wanna know how you can check? Make a scan line. Remember the scan line we did on the lion? And the Steph Curry thing. So when we go straight up, all right, straight up from here, we see that this point does not line up with that. That means this point is not directly above this. It's actually a little bit to the right of it. So if we make a straight scan line here, we want to make sure that we make this point a little bit to the right. And we also want to make sure that this negative space, this distance here, is correct. Okay, we also notice that it's going to be higher than this point. So we want to make sure there's going to be an upward angle from here to here, right? So in other words, what we're going to end up with here, practice swing, practice swing, practice swing, boop. Okay, what we're going to end up with here is a wedge, kind of like a skinny triangle, right? Skinny triangle, right? All right, so skinny triangle, looking pretty good, okay? So if I see these 2 points line up on yours, I know you weren't paying attention. All right, so please make sure that this point is a little bit to the right of this point, okay? All right, now let's get rid of this. We don't need it anymore. Okay, we also don't want this to be too far away from this. If your angle's too steep, that means you made this too high, okay? So just make sure that this triangle matches this triangle, okay? Call that, we can consider that negative space, I guess, even though it's technically on the object. Okay, now we have one more point over here and one more over here. Let's figure out these points right here. Now these are very important points. Do you want to know why? Because if we get these a little bit wrong, it only affects this cube. But if we get these in the wrong place, it's going to affect this shape, and it's going to crowd them and push them too far this way or make them go too far this way. So it's going to actually affect them a lot. So we need to really make sure that we check a lot of stuff when we do these. Now these run along a vertical line, and that vertical line can be continued all the way down here. Let's look at the relationship of this point to this point, all right? So you see the distance? I already made that, and you know, making a drawing is like a house of cards. You want to make sure you're building on a strong foundation so that you know, there's nothing weak below. It would make the whole thing fall down, right? So if this is not in the right place, then you're going to be basing this on something that's wrong, and that's not good, right? So we want to make sure that we're basing this on a correct point. So let's look at that distance. Let's say it's just around here maybe, right? Okay. All right. And the reason that we do this whole process is to trick our left brain into going away, because left brain is going to want to even things out. It's going to want to bring this to the same level as this. It's going to want to make this flat. It does not like angles. It does not like the fact that this square is very skinny and squished. It's not very skinny, but it's just a little skinnier and squished. It doesn't like that. It doesn't like that. It wants every square to be perfect, just a perfect square like this, you know? It just wants every square to be a square. It doesn't like it that the squares are like funky. You know what I mean? It doesn't like it that they're skinny or that they have angly lines. Left brain hates that. So we need to trick left brain, right? And we've learned many tricks to doing that, and I will help you see them all. And looking at negative space is helpful, because see this triangle-y kind of wedge-shaped negative space? It actually helps you to see that this is an angly line, whether your left brain likes it or not. It's like, too bad, it's angle, okay? So now let's see how far up that point is going to be. I'd say it's about like maybe like right there. And remember, higher than this point, right? Higher than this point. And then I'm going to do, I'm going to go practice swing, practice swing, practice swing, practice swing, boom. Oh, that was terrible. Some of the practice swings don't work out. Sometimes you need to pick up your board and kind of angle it a little differently. That's fine. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to pick up my board a little. I'm going to go practice swing, practice swing. This feels more natural. So boom. See how nice and smooth that is? I overshot a little bit, but that's okay. All right. Now we know that this is a vertical line, but we don't know quite how high it is because we don't want to just blindly just start drawing up into the great white unknown. What we want to do is we want to have our basketball goal up here somewhere, right? So let's go ahead and make ourselves our point. So we know that it's higher than this point, right? But it's got to be lower than this point, right? So it's going to form another triangle. So we got to visualize a triangle. The cool thing though is that it's directly across from this point. So that's kind of cool. So if we do a scan line from here, we kind of go straight across. We know that it's got to be somewhere around here. And the kind of cool thing is that if you kind of make an intersection between this horizontal line and this vertical line, you're going to get your spot. Okay, there it is. Right there, the intersection of that scan line and that. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and just darken this a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in my boop, boop, my little angly line here and my angly line here. All right. Okay, let's take a look and see how it came out. All right, so I'm going to do an eyeball bounce. All right, I'm going to do an eyeball bounce and see how I'm doing. Oops, just erase this. Be careful not to erase this too much because apparently it erases the gray way. All right, look, doing eyeball bounce, I'm noticing that my diamond shape here is a little bit taller than this diamond shape, and I'm wondering what I should do to fix it. I think, looking back and forth, I think I'm going to move this a little tiny bit up, just a little tiny bit up. Okay, so it's going to make this angle a little bit shallower. Gonna bring this up. I'm just gonna do that. All right, I'm a little happier with that, I think. Let's see. Remember, it's very important we get our shapes right. Otherwise, we'll do all this work and it'll be just still weird looking. And we don't want it to be weird looking. We want it to be convincing and realistic, right? Okay, so I'm looking back and forth and I'm pretty happy with my cube. I'm looking down here and I think my cube's a little bit short. It's a little bit too squished and it could have been a little wider. Hopefully that doesn't come back and haunt me later. I could still fix it. Let me see. If I come down here, yeah, I guess this was supposed to be a little further out. Probably this was supposed to be further out too. So at this point, the best way I can really fix this is maybe to just bring this out just a little bit more out here. Let's do that. See, guys, even Mrs. Juarez doesn't get it right the first time all the time, right? This should make you feel better. You have to erase 1,000 times. It's just part of the process. All right, I'm a little happier. I'm a little happier with that. All right, it's going to be good. All right, now let's move on to a different shape. We have finished our cube. Yay. Okay. Now, these cast shadows are actually they're shapes as well, and they are important, and they can actually be helpful in showing us whether our objects are in the right place. But I think we can go ahead and let's do the sphere. I think we should do the sphere next, okay? Now, the sphere has a relationship to the cube, and as long as our cube is right, that's why I think scanning your eye down and making sure your cube is the same, it came out the same amount as this cube, is important because see this space right here? We're going to be basing it on where this is. So we want to make sure this is pretty right? All right, so I'm going to say that space is about yay big. Say it's about yay big. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that space? See this space? You see this space? Do you think I put that mark in the right place? What do you think? I'm going to go with it and we'll see what happens. Okay, so there's point A, and we want to know where point B is so we know how wide our sphere is. Now we know we have to honor this negative space shape, right? This negative space shape is our friend. It's helping us. It's helping us to place our sphere. So thank you, negative space shape. You're welcome. All right, so see this space? You see how I made my line too wide, so I'm just going to erase a little bit. It's kind of skinny right here. It kind of goes like about like that and starts to curve. All right, so we've got our, maybe I should just make it simple and just make a mark. All right, so this is how wide that negative space needs to be. So now we know this side of our sphere and this side of our sphere. And now we need to make it look like a complete circle. So the best way to make it look like a complete circle, a perfect circle, is to get the top and the bottom put in correctly, okay? And hopefully everything works out and it won't look like an egg, because if it looks like an egg, then we know we have some problems. All right, so let's look at the negative space that's here between this edge and the sphere. All right, so it's about that big. So I'm going to go here. I'm just going to say it's about, what do you think? Does that look pretty good? I hope so. I think it looks pretty good. All right. And you see that this point is the lowest point of the sphere. I want that to be directly above this. Okay, cool. Now the top, it's going to be a little harder. A little bit harder. You know why it's harder? Because I don't have the edge here to help me. I just have this big white unknown expanse. It's like walking out onto a giant frozen tundra and you don't know where you're going because it's just white as far as the eye can see. There's like literally nothing to base it on. So I'm going to just do my best, and then we're going to do some scanning, and we're also going to compare the top of this to our our cube, because our cube is already established and hopefully it's correct. And if our cube is the right height, then this guy should be a little bit lower than our cube. So knowing that, I want to make sure I look at this point and I kind of make something a little tiny bit lower. So looking at this, I want it to be a little bit lower. I'm going to go ahead and put it here, and then I'm going to look at it and see what happened. All right, so I can tell that it looks like if I were to draw a line going straight across here, it looks like this space would be bigger than this space, and that's not good. We don't want that. I think I need to raise this up a little bit because it looks like it might be a little squished here. I'm going to raise it up just a touch. Just a little bit and see what happens. Okay, now let's do another little trick to help ourselves. Let's make like a horizontal line and go like that from across here over here. Okay, do you guys see what I did? I just kind of made like a scan line, and now I see its relationship to my table line. So that's something that we can actually like really kind of bank on. It looks like pretty easy to figure out, right? So now let's see if I got it. Yep, looks good. All right, now here comes the practice swing technique, okay? So instead of making I don't want you guys doing little teeny tiny hairy lines, okay? Because we don't want this to look like a fur ball that your cat coughed up, okay? So see, that looks like a hairy hairball. Not good. Okay, so we don't want hairy lines. What we want is smooth lines that look like a circle, okay? So what we want to do is kind of start moving our pencil in a nice round way. And we want to do this, and we want to hit all the spots, all 4 spots. So we want to do this very gently. And do this as many times as you need. I mean, seriously, if you have to do it 10 times, that's fine. And then as you start to come around and start to envision this circle, you can start to pop in very lightly some smooth lines. I'm going to make a total of 4 smooth lines. 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, whoop, whoop, and 1 here. And hopefully they all come together and make a circle. So, I mean, it's a little bit of a funky circle. I might want to go in and kind of like smooth the edges out. But you know what? It looks decent. It looks pretty good. Now, if you're not happy with the way your circle comes out, if it does not look the same height as the width, then you may only have to fix one side of it. Like you may have to either like stare at it for a while. If it looks too skinny, then you either need to bring the sides out or bring the top and bottom in. If it looks too flat, then you need to either stretch it this way or bring it in this way. Anyway, the point is, as you're fixing it, make sure you honor the negative space around it. Okay, so this space and this space need to stay the same no matter what you do, okay? So, because if you start just changing this and making this huge ball that's just all squished up in here, it's gonna just completely destroy this picture. Okay, so, and erase it as many times as you need to. I'd rather see like 20 eraser marks on here and then see a decent sized circle than see you just go, whoop, okay, I'm done, and it looks terrible, okay? So please don't just do it in 2 seconds, all right? Really take your time and try to do it right. Okay, very good. All right, now let's start our cylinder, okay? So what is a cylinder? A cylinder is like someone took a circle and like made it tall and made it like have a tube around it. So it's pretty cool. All right, so do you guys see this line right here? This is the bottom of the cylinder. And as you can see, it's slightly curved like a smile, right? All right, now let's look at the relationship between that line and some of our already established points. Okay, so where is it hitting our circle? Where is it hitting our cube? The easiest would probably be to be the one, the relationship from this to this. So let's look at that short little space. That's a pretty short little guy. And then let's go straight across, go over here. This should be a little bit lower than the middle of our, because if we were to draw a line for the middle of this sphere, it would be up here. So it's a little bit below the middle of that. Now let's make it slightly curved, nice and light. Practice swing, practice swing, practice swing, boom, okay? All right, we got that nice little curve. Okay, great. Now that that's all set and we check the relationship, oh, this is a great time to look at negative space. See this negative space, how it's like this curve and then a curve and then it comes down and then it goes like that? That negative space, let's go up and down. Let's look up and down, back and forth. Does my negative space look like that negative space shape? It's a little wide. I admit this is a little wide, but I'm going to just go with it for now because it's not like a deal breaker. It's not horrible. Okay. So as long as you do your eyeball bounce and make sure that your negative spaces are all looking pretty equal, then we're good. Okay. Now, if I wanted to fix it, I could probably maybe make this a little bit wider or make this come out a little bit more. Remember, we thought this was a little bit too far in anyway. So drawing is all about problem solving and not problem making. You don't want to make problems for yourself, but if you can solve two problems by making one move, then that's actually a really good strategic move. All right. Well, anyway, let's look at these well, you know what? Before we make these tall vertical lines, which are pretty tall and pretty extreme, we want to know where we're shooting for. Where is this shape? Now, do you know what kind of shape this is? This is called an ellipse. An ellipse. An ellipse is like an oval, all right? And let me ask you something. Does this ellipse look very skinny or very kind of wide tall to you? Look at it. It's very skinny, right? Now, left brain hates that because to left brain, logically, the top of this cylinder is a perfect circle. Does that look like a perfect circle to you? No, it doesn't, right? But left brain is so annoyed by the fact that this is not a perfect circle that your left brain is going to want to make a perfect circle right here. Like this is literally what your left brain really wants to do. It's like, please, please, please let me make a perfect circle. Not that that's a perfect circle, but this is what your left brain's going to want to do. And I can't tell you how many times students have done this on their paper. And it's like letting your left brain just bully you. Don't let it bully you. Look at what you're actually seeing. What are you actually seeing? You're seeing a very, very skinny, very, very flat shape, right? That is slightly curved. So we do not want to let our left brain take over in this operation, right? All right. So let's figure out where this ellipse is compared to the top of our paper. Top of our rectangle, I mean. Okay? All right, so I'm looking at this negative space. I'm looking at the height of the negative space here. All right, and I'm going to scan down and see, well, it's got to, the middle of this is probably going to line up with somewhere along the middle of that. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to say just around here is where I kind of want to have that. But it has to be this distance from the top. Maybe that's too tall. Now this is a place where you could get away with a little bit of error. If you make your cylinder a little too tall or a little too short, it's really no big. It's not going to really ruin or make or break your drawing, okay? But we do want to try to get this negative space shape the right height. So see that space? Does that look pretty good to you? What do you think? Should we move on? Okay. All right. Now let's look at where we know that the edge of this and the end of this and the end of this are going to line up with this, right? And so we want to know that everything is going to be aligned. We also could go up here and kind of make some marks up here for ourselves. That would be helpful, right? So we know that the edge of this is going to be about this far in. So what is that, about like that maybe? That'll keep me from getting too far off. And then there's a distance about like that, which is kind of like right here. So we know that we don't want to go too far past these two little marks. I don't know if these marks are right now, but I'm just putting them in to see if it'll help. It'll help a little bit as we go along. All right. Let's look at the relationship with the sphere. If this is the center of the sphere right here, the top center, we need to go to the right of that, right? Not much, but just a little bit. So if this is the top center, we go to the right a little bit, make a little mark here, and let's make sure that this and this are lined up or that they're sort of right. It looks like they're a little bit off, so I'm going to have to make sure that they reconcile because I need to figure out where this line is going to be. It's going to be somewhere around here. I'm going to make a tentative line right here. Remember, it has to be perfectly vertical. I'm going to check my negative space here. Check the negative space, check the negative space. I'm going to look. It should line up, like physically line up. Like literally, like if you put a ruler here, they should line up. If yours is way over here or way over here, you got to erase it and start again. Okay, not everything, but just that part. Okay, now let's look at this side. How far along this cube, the top of this cube, is this guy hitting? So I would say it's about maybe like that. Does that look about right? And then if I go straight up, I'm not quite hitting that. I have a feeling when I look at this negative space shape that this is a little bit narrow. So I'm going to bring it over a little bit, just a little bit, because I want it to line up with this as best I can. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a vertical line there. And now, because this is the top of our shape, we don't want to go past it. You see how it has a slight curve going like this, kind of like a hill, like a slight convex, a slight convex curve, right? So sort of like a hill, but very subtle. It's practically straight. It's just a slight one. It's not like a huge hill. It's like a very subtle hill. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense to you. I hope you're seeing that. All right, so let's go ahead and make a subtle curve. This is where the practice swing technique would really come in handy. So practice swing, and then boom, put it in one shot. Okay? And then the underside of this is also a curve that's very subtle, but it's just going the other way. Do you know what I mean? So we don't want to see a huge smile, okay? What we want to see is just a very subtle curve that's concave. All right, so let's start here and let's make a subtle concave curve. Now let's check the height of this negative space, or this, just the relationship between this and this is it's very close, right? So I'm checking and it looks pretty good, right? Now, if for some reason you accidentally let your left brain take over and you made like a line that looked like this, you are going to see pretty quickly, if you pay attention, because drawing is all about paying attention, right, folks? Okay, so you're going to see that this distance is way too tall compared to this, right? So I hope that's something you're keeping in mind. So obviously we don't want an extreme curve like this. The negative space is going to tell us that something went very wrong, right? So let's just go like that. Okay, very good. All right, now this would be step 1. Then you should go take a break, make a sandwich, take a little break, walk away for a little while, because this was a lot of work. And if this took you like an hour or 2 hours, fine. That's not bad. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with you or anything. This was very, very hard. We had 3 objects to place in the right relationship, not only with each other, but with the whole rectangle. Whew, I'm exhausted. I don't know about you, but anyway. Okay, so that is phase 1. Now it's time to shade, all right? So what I'm going to have you do, we're going to do the shade and erase method that we did with the sphere. So what we're going to do is pick an angle. If you like coloring up and down, shading up and down, then do it up and down. If you like shading side by side, I think right-handed people would probably do it a different angle than I would, but I'm left-handed, so I'm just going to go like this. This is what's natural for me. I want to do like a medium gray over this whole thing. Oh, whoops, I forgot one step. Sorry, guys. I forgot one step. Once this is really right and you've looked back and forth, up and down, back and forth, and maybe even asked your parents or a sibling to check it for you and ask them if they see anything that's a little bit off, or maybe you took a break for an hour, came back and saw that something wasn't right. You fixed it, and now that everything's right, I want you to go in and darken your lines, okay? So we're going to darken our lines in a nice, confident way. What do I mean by confident? I mean, make your lines smooth. Connect the dots smoothly. There's no more thinking involved. This is pure just tracing, right? Trace. And the reason why we're doing this is so that when we shade, which I was almost doing, when we shade, we don't want to cover up our lines that we made, that we spent so long on. We don't want to ruin it. We don't want to cover them up. Curvy. Nice and smooth and curvy, right? Okay, everybody see what I'm doing? Okay, good. It's right there. Okay, once you've darkened all your lines, then you can go in. I hope I caught you in time. I hope you didn't go in and shade all this. Hopefully. Worst case scenario, I mean, you probably can still see your lines and just go in and darken them before it's too late. Remember, muscle control keeps this gray nice and consistent. Remember, we don't want like tiger stripes, like a dark part next to a light part. We want everything to be about the same all over. And if you go a little bit outside the square, no big. Just go and erase it, clean it up, trim it out. Oops, I need a tiger stripe. I could feel my muscle getting out of control there. In other words, the muscle control that I was doing before, I kind of felt I just went a little too hard right in that spot. That's okay, you can just always go in and just erase that. Just go back over it and smooth it in. All right, now this time I think I'm gonna go ahead and do the softly blurring thing. So hold on one second, I grab a napkin. Okay, you can use a napkin, you can use a tissue. You want to make your napkin into a little ball, and then what you want to do is circles. Circle, 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 all around. Look at that beautiful, even, gray cloud that I created. I just kind of created like a gray, soft haze over this entire thing. Can you see how nice and soft it is? Doesn't that look good? Okay, so if you accidentally lay down way too much pencil, it's going to look just a lot darker, and that's not the end of the world, okay? So it's not like you ruined it. You don't have to erase everything and start all over again. It's fine. So but remember, it's always easier to add gray than it is to take away. Okay, now see how it came a little bit outside the lines? So I'm going to have a little fun, and I'm going to clean this up. Check it out. Clean, 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 clean. Clean, clean, clean. Clean, 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 clean. And clean, clean, clean. This makes it look good. Of course, we'll probably have to do this again at the end, but that's okay. Just showing you how to clean it up. All right, now. Oh, and when you brush away crumbs, don't use your hand because it has oils and stuff. Use your, just use your little tissue or use your sleeve. Well, unless you don't want it to get all over your sleeve, but okay. Hopefully it's laundry day. All right, now let's erase out some of our lovely light areas. All right, so you can use an eraser that's on your pencil or a separate eraser. All right, so remember light, well, we can all pretty much tell which side the light is coming from, right? So because it's hitting on here, here, and here, we know the light's coming from the left side. And remember, there are some cast shadows that are creating shapes on some of our objects. So before we go and do some lights, we want to kind of draw those in really quick. So see this, it comes up to a certain point here and it starts at a certain point here. So let's see, it's about this far over and it's about this far down. And then it makes like a curve like this, right? Okay, and then there's also this line here, which makes a very skinny negative space shape here. So just make sure that it makes a very skinny negative space shape on yours too. Okay, so see the skinny negative space shape? So that looks good. And then this side actually lines up with where this hits. So make sure they line up. Start there, and then make it kind of come around slightly curved till it hits right about just a little bit past the center of that bottom of that circle. So right here is where it comes in. So we want to go from this point to this point, right? So we want to just, okay, perfect. Now, there's also cast shadow over here. Makes a very skinny triangle, right? And it ends up right here. So let's make ourselves a little mark. Let's go from here to here. Connect the dots. Whee! Okay. And then there's another line right here, makes a negative space shape that is about that big. All right, so there's a distance there that looks pretty good. There's a distance there that looks pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. All right, so, okay, good. I'm glad we got those cast shadows done because we want to actually take away white around the whites around them. All right, so first let's go in and take away this area. This is about as white as something is going to get on this whole thing. So let's go ahead and take away the whole thing. Now, using a big old honkin' eraser like this is not good for when you're trying to do details, so be very careful. See how I'm not actually getting near the edge? That's because I don't want to have to put in more gray. Of course, we will inevitably have to, but it's okay. So what I'm going to do is switch to my precision eraser. So this is my precision eraser tool. Go in, and I'm going to go with the direction of the edge. With it, curve with it, curve with it, curve with it, curve with it. Curve with, okay, angle, angle, up, up, up. Give it one more clean thing. And remember, how do we get rid of these annoying crumbs? You can either blow on them or just give them a light, but don't rub too hard with this because then you'll start actually putting gray back on your nice white areas, right? Okay. So how does this look? It's already starting to look pretty cool, right? Look, I only put in one white shape and it actually already looks pretty awesome. So imagine when we do the rest of this, you guys are gonna not believe your eyes when you see your drawing, how cool it's gonna look. It's gonna be amazing. Now, my erasing got a little bit outside the line. See that little hangnail right there? I don't like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to get in and fuzz it back into gray. See how I'm just rubbing it? Remember, never use your bare finger because it's got nasty oils on it. Not just you. It doesn't mean you didn't, you don't bathe enough. It just everybody, or wash your hands enough. Everybody's hands have oil. And even after you washed your hands, like literally the next second after you wash your hands, there's still oil on your fingers. That is really, really like impossible to get rid of. It's just oozing out of your pores at all. I know it's gross, but that's the way it is. So please do not rub this. Even though you're tempted, do not rub with your finger, okay? Like even if, ask somebody to go get you a tissue or whatever, or get up and go get a tissue, but do not use your finger even though it's tempting. Okay, let's move on to another light shape. How about the shape on this side? Look at how white it gets, and then it slowly gets grayer as it goes this way. But what I want to do is use my precision tool right next to the line, and also right up here. So see that little corner? We got to get up into that corner. And we got to come around, but don't come around too far because we just want a band of very light white on the very far left, right here. And we also want to be very precise right around our sphere and kind of come around the sphere like that. Okay. Now, here's a little pro trick. Let's see if you can do this. Can you not rub that hard with your eraser so that you don't take away as much of the gray? Can you do that? I know you can. Watch this. All right, so before I was rubbing really hard, like as hard as I could, right? Look at all the crumbs I'm making, right? But now I'm going to be rubbing a little softer. Watch this. Softer. Rubbing a little bit softer. I'm still going up and down. See how I'm rubbing in the up and down direction? That's because this is a vertical shape. And so I want my erasing to be vertical as well. But see how I'm just rubbing very gently? Very gently. And I want to stop when I get to the edge of this line. And then what you can do to make it look amazing is after you rub away the crumbs, you can give it like another little rub like that to kind of soften it and make it start to look like a transition. Is that looking pretty good? Yay! All right, we haven't done any of the shadow cores. Wait till we put the shadow cores in. It's going to look so good. All right, our sphere. You remember on the sphere, there's a highlight, which is probably kind of like around there, and then there's like light around it. So we want to take away, I think I'm going to use my bigger eraser for this. And we want to take away, let's look at the shape that it makes. It makes kind of like a half moon shape type thing. I'm going to take away a little bit of gray, and then I'm going to take away a lot of gray. I'm going to take away as much gray as I can on the highlight, which is kind of around here. I'm just gonna make sure there's no little stripes. Now this is where it's a little tricky, but you gotta fuzz out the light, fuzz it out, and then get your tissue and give it a little soft fuzzing. There we go. All right. So remember, the lightest part is on this side right here, and then it gets slightly, like a little bit grayer as you go out. Okay. All right, I'm pretty happy with all of the lights that we have here. We're going to keep the top of this and the top of this the actual gray that we made originally, okay? We're also going to keep our tabletop gray, because see how it's gray? It's not white like our sphere, because our sphere was on paper, which was white. This is probably on like a I don't know, maybe a gray table or any color table because it's a black and white picture. All right, so now we're going to go in and we are going to make some of our darker shadows, okay? All right, so first let's start with something easy. Let's do our cast shadow. This is definitely pretty dark, right? So let's go ahead and darken this baby up, and then we'll figure out where the accents are. Try to go up and down on this because the shape at the edge, the side of the shape is going up and down, so you should go up and down. If you go like across that, it's gonna make it look a little fake. Now, let's switch directions here. Do you guys remember when I told you about, you remember the bear and the duck, how I told you that you can shade horizontally when you're shading a cast shadow on the tabletop? So let's go back and forth like this. Let's do horizontal shading right here. Remember to don't go outside the lines. See, I'm going back and forth like this. Now I went up and down on this where it hit the cube, and then I switched direction. This is going to really help to convince people, like it's going to communicate. It's going to communicate to people's brain that this shadow is hitting a vertical surface, but this shadow is hitting a horizontal surface. Does that make sense? Okay, and let's also shade here in a horizontal way. Horizontal, 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 back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Oops, I went outside the lines. Oops, 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 that's okay. That's what erasers are made for. Fixie, fixie, clean. Okay, look at that. All right, so now that's looking pretty good. I think those are only cast shadows. So that's good. Now, do you see the accent right here? You see how it's darkest right here, and then it slowly fuzzes out? So let's go ahead and make that the darkest. I mean, I'm talking press hard with your pencil. Like, literally make that pitch black right here, okay? Right here. So I'll do close up, and if you can see, but right here, nice and dark. Okay. All right. And then fuzz it out. Let it fade out by basically not pressing as hard. And then there's also a little accent right under here. Yay. Okay. I don't really see an accent on here, so we're just gonna like leave it alone. All right. Now it's time for the shadow core. Yay! Now, there isn't really a shadow core on this, but there is a shadow core here and here. Okay, I hope you saw that. Now remember, we have the beautiful reflected light, and the reflected light is here. Reflected light is always going to be found near the edge of the furthest edge of the object away from the light. Does that make sense? So remember, light is coming in, it's bouncing off of this, and it's hitting the back of this. So watch this, like boop, 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 boing, hits this, right? Now there's no way that that can be as light as that, right? Because it's secondhand light. It's bouncing off of this, and it's kind of like when you play a game of telephone. It's like not going to ever be the same as the original thing, right? And same here. I don't know, this is probably bouncing from either from off of this or from way over here, and it's coming back and hitting this, right? Okay. So now we're going to make our shadow core. Now this shadow core is the easiest because it's basically vertical. It's just a vertical, fuzzy, dark shape somewhere between here and here. And remember to leave a little bit of light gray here. So we're going to, actually this has a relationship to the cube. It's actually just past this corner here. So see this corner? This is where our lovely little shadow core is going to be. And it's very, very important that you don't cross over this, and you don't cross this line. Okay, so you might want to be very, very careful when you come up to that line. Do not penetrate past that line, okay? If you do, it's no big deal. Just take your tissue and wipe it, and then just do it again. So no penetrating. Okay, now start to get a little darker there. Now remember, the edges, the sides of this need to be fuzzy. So you do whatever it takes. If you have to change direction, whatever. But you want to make sure it's very soft and blurred so that you don't see a very hard stripe. I don't want it to look like someone took a black Sharpie marker and just drew a stripe on here, okay? That would not be the right way to do this. It has to have soft edges. And if you need to, pull out your handy dandy high-tech tool of your napkin or tissue and go ahead and fuzz it out, because I do not want to see any hard edges there. That would be bad. It's okay to have hard edges on a cast shadow. That's normal, okay? But it's not okay to have hard edges on a form shadow, all right? All right, So does that look pretty good? We've got a reflected light. And by the way, if you accidentally go all the way to the edge with your dark shadow core, it's okay. Just go in and erase out your reflected light a little bit. Just don't make it white. Go back in. Okay, I'll just show you. Let's say you go back in and it's like, oh, snap, it got really, really white. No big. Just take your fuzzy thing and you go do 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 do. Okay, now it's gray again. Yay! Okay. All right, so I'm just going to darken this again because it got fuzzed out. Remember, use the side of your lead. That's a pro tip. Okay, yay, we got that done. Now, let's do the shadow core on this. As you can see, it makes that lovely crescent moon shape that sphere shadow cores generally do. And it's going to be right around, it's going to start right where this cylinder comes in. See how it starts right there and it ends just a little bit past the bottom.